6 a.m. A diesel engine woke me up. By the time I got to the front door, my father's '67 Mustang was already hooked to a tow truck, chains tight, rear wheels off the ground. I ran outside in my pajamas, barefoot on wet grass, yelling at the driver. He shrugged, handed me a work order, signed by the HOA. And there she was, Bryn Kowalczyk, our HOA president, standing on the sidewalk in a pastel cardigan, arms crossed, smiling. Not smirking, smiling, like she'd just won something. The truck pulled away, metal scraped pavement. My father's car, the last thing I had of him, disappeared around the corner. I should have been furious, but standing there, soaked and shaking, I just thought, "Lady, you have no idea what you just started." 3 months later, 25 tons of Cold War steel rolled onto our street, completely legal. And her smile? Gone. My name's Dex Harmon, 52 years old, retired Army, 27 years, logistics officer. If you don't know what that means, it's simple. I moved mountains of equipment across deserts and war zones without losing a single crate. I'm good at solving problems. Very good. I bought my house in Pinewood Meadows 6 months before all this started. It's a subdivision outside Raleigh, North Carolina. 68 homes, mostly ranch style, built in the mid-2000s. Middle-income neighborhood, teachers, retirees, small business owners, the kind of place where people wave when they mow their lawns and nobody locks their doors. I wanted peace. I'd spent nearly 3 decades in uniforms and deserts. I was divorced, amicably, but still. My 2 kids were grown, one in grad school out in Colorado, the other teaching English in South Korea. I didn't need much. Just a garage to work in, a small garden, and time to think. The Mustang? That was my father's, a 1967 fastback, night mist blue, original engine. He bought it the year I was born. Drove it until the day he died, Korean War vet, tough as nails, never complained about anything. When he passed 2 years ago, he left me the car and a note. "Keep her running, son. She's got more life in her than both of us." So I did. I restored her. New upholstery, rebuilt the transmission, kept the original paint. She wasn't a project car, she was done. Registered historic vehicle in North Carolina, special plates and everything. Insured, inspected, legal in every possible way. I parked her in my driveway, same as 8 other neighbors parked their boats, trailers, work vans. Nobody cared. Until she cared. Bryn Kowalczyk, 47 years old, real estate agent, or at least that's what her business card said. I'm not sure how much real estate she actually sold because she spent most of her time patrolling the neighborhood like a mall cop with a clipboard. She had a blonde bob that looked shellacked in place, pastel cardigans in every color, and a voice like a kindergarten teacher scolding a kid for eating glue. She drove a white Audi Q5 with a vanity plate that read, "Sold it." Her husband, Todd, was a ghost. Mid-50s, worked remotely for some pharmaceutical company, never made eye contact. I saw him maybe twice in 6 months, always getting into his car, always looking at his phone, always silent. Bryn didn't have kids. What she did have was an obsession with property values and community standards. And 6 months before I moved in, she'd staged a quiet coup. See, HOAs require elections, but most people don't vote because most people don't care. Bryn knew this. She called a special meeting, sent notices to only a handful of homes, and got herself elected president with 11 votes. 11. Out of 68 homes. The previous board had been lenient, basically invisible. Bryn was the opposite. She was everywhere. Measuring lawn heights with a ruler. Taking photos of trash cans left out past 7 p.m. Sending violation notices for the wrong shade of mailbox paint. And 3 weeks after I moved in, she left a door hanger on my front knob. It was printed on HOA letterhead, clip art gavel in the corner, very official. And it said, "Reminder, project vehicles must be garaged or removed per section 9.420C of the covenants." Project vehicle, my father's Mustang, the car I'd driven to his funeral. I read the letter twice, then I looked across the street. My neighbor Ramon had a work van in his driveway. Big HVAC company logo on the side. 2 doors down, Mr. Ortiz had a bass boat on a trailer. Another neighbor had a Corvette under a car cover. Nobody else had letters. Just me. I crumpled the paper and tossed it in the recycling, kept parking the Mustang exactly where it was. 2 weeks later, a certified letter arrived. The certified letter was thicker than the first one. Heavier paper, expensive, the kind lawyers use. It had weight to it like a threat wrapped in cotton. Dear Mr. Harmon, this is your final notice regarding violation of HOA covenants, Section 9.4.c, unauthorized vehicle storage. You have been observed parking a project vehicle in your driveway for 21 consecutive days. The board has voted to impose a fine of $50 per day, retroactive to the date of first notice, until the vehicle is removed or garaged. Total due, $1,050. Please remit payment within 10 business days to avoid further action. Signed by Bryn. Countersigned by 2 board members I'd never met, Paulette something and Glenn something else. I didn't pay it. Instead, I showed up to the next HOA meeting. It was held in the subdivision clubhouse, a beige room that smelled like burnt coffee and industrial carpet cleaner, folding chairs arranged in rows. Maybe a dozen people showed up. Bryn sat at a folding table up front, flanked by her 2 board lackeys. Paulette was a retired bank manager, gray hair, reading glasses on a chain. Glenn owned a lawn care company. I'd seen his trucks around the neighborhood, loud mowers with his name stenciled on the side. I raised my hand during public comment. Mr. Harmon, Bryn said, smiling that smile, how nice of you to join us. I'm here to appeal the fine, I said. My car isn't a project vehicle. It's registered, insured, and legal. I'd like the board to reverse the decision. Bryn glanced at Paulette and Glenn. They nodded, almost synchronized. The board has reviewed your appeal, Bryn said, and we've voted to deny it. 3-0. The vehicle does not reflect community standards. I'm sure you understand standards from your service. The way she said service, like I'd been cleaning toilets instead of coordinating supply chains in Baghdad. I didn't argue. I just stood up and left. Because here's what I learned in the Army. Don't fight battles you can't win in the moment. Regroup. Gather intel, then strike. 5 days later, I woke up to that diesel engine. The tow truck driver was maybe 25, skinny, chewing gum. He wouldn't look me in the eye, just shoved a work order at me. HOA letterhead, Bryn's signature, dated the night before. Where's the 48-hour notice? I asked. He shrugged. Lady said it was abandoned. Does this look abandoned to you? Another shrug. Take it up with her, man. And he drove off with my father's car. The impound lot was 40 minutes away past the airport in a part of town where the buildings had bars on the windows. The owner, a guy named Earl, 60-something, gray beard, chewing tobacco, looked genuinely sorry when I walked in. That your Mustang? He asked. Yeah. Shame. She's a beauty. He pulled up the invoice on a grease-stained computer. $385 to release her, plus $75 a day storage. I paid. But before I left, Earl leaned in close. Between you and me, he said, that HOA lady's used us 4 times this year. Same story every time. Says the car's abandoned, we tow it, owner shows up pissed. We get paid either way, but... He slid a photocopy of the invoice across the counter. Might need this. I took it. Thanks. He nodded. Good luck, brother. Cham. Back home, I made 3 calls. First, North Carolina DMV filed a complaint about an unlawful tow. State law's pretty clear. You can't tow a vehicle from private property without 48 hours written notice unless it's blocking traffic or reported stolen. Bryn hadn't done either. Second, a paralegal I knew from my VA hospital days. Her name was Mira, sharp as a knife, owed me a favor from back when we were both deployed in Iraq. I explained the situation. She laughed. Dex, you're telling me this woman towed your car with no notice and thinks she's going to get away with it? That's what I'm telling you. Give me 2 days. Third call. I didn't make it yet. I just started digging. North Carolina has laws about HOAs. Most people don't know this, but HOA boards are required to file annual financial disclosures, publicly available just like any nonprofit. It's part of Chapter 47F of the state statutes. I pulled Pinewood Meadows records. Bryn hadn't filed hers. Not once since she took over. That's a violation, a big one. 2 days later, Mira sent me a demand letter. Certified, professional, terrifying. It requested full reimbursement of the tow fees plus $1,500 in damages for illegal seizure of property, and she'd copied all 67 other homeowners. I walked to the mailbox that afternoon and dropped 67 envelopes, one by one. Each copy of the letter made a satisfying thunk as it hit the bottom of the blue box. By that evening, my phone started ringing. 3 neighbors, people I barely knew, wanted to talk. Turns out Bryn had been busy. One guy got fined for his lawn being a 1/4 inch too tall. A woman got cited for hanging a wreath on her door in July. Another neighbor's grandson, college kid, worked as a pizza delivery driver, had his Camry towed because Bryn said it was a commercial vehicle. This wasn't about me. This was about power, and Bryn had way too much of it. Bryn didn't respond to the demand letter. Not a word, not an email, not even a passive-aggressive door hanger. What she did do was call an emergency board meeting. Midnight. Email votes only. No public notice. The next morning, I got another certified letter. This one was worse. Dear Mr. Harmon, the board has voted to impose escalated fines for continued non-compliance. Effective immediately, fines are increased to $100 per day, retroactive to the original violation date. Total amount due, $4,300. Failure to remit payment within 30 days will result in a lien being placed on your property. $4,300. For parking my car in my own driveway. I stood in my kitchen, holding the letter, and I actually laughed. Not because it was funny, because it was insane. This woman was threatening to put a lien on my house, potentially force a sale, over a car she didn't like. But she wasn't done. 2 days later, a county zoning inspector showed up at my door. His name was Jorge. Mid-40s, tired eyes, clipboard, county polo shirt. He looked like a man who'd seen too much neighborhood drama and just wanted to go home. Mr. Harmon? That's me. I've received a complaint about commercial activity at this address. Mind if I take a look at your garage? I knew exactly who'd filed the complaint. Come on in. Jorge walked through my garage slowly. Toolbox, workbench, a motorcycle engine I was rebuilding for fun. Belonged to an old Yamaha, nothing fancy. Oil pan underneath. Parts organized on shelves. No customers, no signage, no cash register. He made notes on his clipboard, then turned to me. This is a hobby, right? You're not running a business? Correct. Just me, just tinkering. He nodded. You're fine. This isn't a commercial operation. He lowered his voice. Between you and me, the woman who filed this complaint, she's filed 3 others this month. Lady with backyard chickens. Guy with a ham radio antenna. None of them were violations either. He handed me a copy of his report, stamped, "No violation found." She's trying to bury you in process. Document everything. Thanks, I said. Jorge paused at the door. Good luck, man. You're gonna need it. After he left, I sat down at my computer and started digging deeper. County property records are public. So are subdivision plats, the original maps that show how a neighborhood was laid out, lot lines, easements, all of it. I pulled up Pinewood Meadows, and I found something beautiful. When the subdivision was built back in 2004, the developer had rezoned the land from agricultural to residential, standard process. But buried in the original plat, the one filed with the county clerk 20 years ago, was a dedication, a 12-foot wide emergency access easement running behind the houses on the cul-de-sac. It had never been paved, never been maintained. Most people didn't even know it existed. It was overgrown with kudzu and brush, invisible unless you knew where to look. But it was still there, legally recorded. And here's the kicker. Easements are public right-of-way. The county owns them. The HOA has 0 jurisdiction over them. And that easement ran directly behind Bryn's house. I called a surveyor I knew, guy named Pete, retired Army Corps of Engineers, owed me a favor. I explained what I'd found. You want me to confirm the easement's still valid? He asked. Yep. When? Tomorrow, he laughed. I like the way you think. The next afternoon, Pete showed up with his equipment, GPS unit, measuring wheel, a bag of orange survey flags. We walked the back edge of the subdivision, pushing through brush and poison ivy, following the plat map. The easement was exactly where the records said it would be, 12 feet wide, running behind 14 houses, including Bryn's. Pete drove flags into the ground every 20 feet, bright orange, impossible to miss. When we reached the section behind Bryn's house, I saw her kitchen window. She was standing there, coffee mug in hand, staring at us. Her face went from pale to red in about 3 seconds. Pete hammered in another flag, right at her property line. "That's gonna piss her off," he said. "I'm counting on it." Here's what most people don't understand about HOAs. They assume the board controls everything inside the subdivision. Every blade of grass, every mailbox, every inch of pavement. Wrong. Easements, utility corridors, and unvacated plat dedications are public land. The county owns them. The HOA can't touch them. And if you want to use that land, say for a parade or a public event, the HOA can't stop you. All you need is a county permit, and I was about to get one. I filed a request with Raleigh's Public Works Department, permission to clear brush and maintain public access along the emergency easement. Totally legal, totally routine. They approved it in 48 hours. I also submitted a separate request, just to be thorough, asking for clarification on whether the easement could be used for community events and public gatherings. And the county's response was one sentence: emergency access easements are public right-of-way and may be used for any lawful purpose, subject to permit approval. I printed that email, framed it in my mind, because Bryn had just lost control of a 12-foot wide strip of land that ran right through her backyard, and she had no idea what was coming. Bryn must have seen those orange flags because 2 days later I got an email. Subject line: emergency special HOA meeting, mandatory attendance. 48 hours notice, barely legal, but technically compliant. The agenda had one item: vote to authorize legal action against Mr. Dex Harmon for breach of covenants, interference with HOA governance, and conduct detrimental to community welfare. I forwarded it to Mira. She called 10 minutes later laughing. "Dex, she's suing you for putting flags on public land? Looks that way. I'm coming to that meeting." Thursday night, the clubhouse was packed. 19 residents, a record. Word had spread. The tow truck, the demand letter, the orange flags, people were paying attention. Bryn sat up front with Paulette and Glenn. Navy blazer, pearl necklace, hair freshly done. She'd even made a PowerPoint presentation. She gavelled us to order with a cheap plastic hammer. "Tonight we address a serious matter affecting our community's integrity," she said, clicking to the first slide, a photo of my Mustang. "This vehicle has been parked in violation of covenants for over 60 days. Mr. Harmon has ignored fines totaling over $4,000, and now," another slide showing Pete's orange survey flag, "he has begun unauthorized activity on HOA property." I bit my cheek to keep from laughing. HOA property. It was a public easement. She clicked through more slides. Screenshots of my demand letter. The zoning report with no violation found circled in red marker. "Mr. Harmon has demonstrated a pattern of hostility," Bryn continued. "He has filed baseless complaints. He has threatened this board with legal action. He is actively interfering with HOA operations." Final slide. A resolution authorizing legal action against me. "I move we vote on this resolution," she said. "All in favor?" Paulette and Glenn raised their hands. "Motion passes 3-. Point of order." Everyone turned. Claudia stood up. 72, retired postal worker, purple cardigan, reading glasses on a chain. She'd lived here 18 years, and she looked pissed. Bryn blinked. "Excuse me?" "Point of order. This is a special meeting. You can't vote on a resolution without giving members time to review it. That's Robert's rules and the bylaws." Bryn's smile tightened. "The resolution was implied in the agenda." "Implied doesn't cut it, honey." Claudia crossed her arms. "And while we're talking, I've got questions. I requested financial records 2 weeks ago. State law says you have to provide them in 10 business days. Where are they?" Murmurs rippled through the room. "We're working on compiling," Bryn started. "For 6 months?" Claudia looked around. "Anyone else get stonewalled asking for records?" 3 hands went up. Ramon stood, HVAC tech, mid-40s, built like someone who carries air conditioners for a living. "Yeah, I got a question. You fined me $150 for parking my work van in my driveway. I pay dues. What are they for if I can't park at my own house?" "The covenants clearly state." "The covenants say you decide what's a violation," Ramon shot back. "Pretty convenient." Another neighbor stood, Keisha, elementary teacher, early 30s. "You fined me for a 4th of July wreath. Said it wasn't seasonally appropriate. Are we not allowed to be patriotic?" The room shifted. Bryn was losing control. She tapped her gavel. Tap, tap, tap. But Claudia kept going. "I've lived here 18 years. The last board wasn't perfect, but they weren't tyrants. You've been president 6 months, and I've gotten more fines than the prior decade. You towed my grandson's car. He's a college kid who delivers pizzas. Explain that. Bryn's mouth opened, closed. We have to maintain standards. Standards or control. The room erupted, people shouting, nodding, arguing. I stood. The room quieted. I have a motion, I said. Bryn glared. You don't have standing. Actually, I do. I'm a homeowner. My dues are paid. I held up a printed document. I move to table tonight's resolution and instead call for a special election to recall the board under North Carolina Statute 47F3103. Any 20% of homeowners can petition for recall. That's 14 signatures. I pulled out the petition Mira had drafted. I'd like to open the floor for signatures. Claudia's hand shot up. I'll sign. Ramon. Me too. Keisha. Yep. 10 hands in 60 seconds. People lined up. The petition passed around the room. Bryn stood, chair scraping. This meeting is adjourned. She slammed the gavel. The plastic head snapped off and skittered across the table. Nobody moved. Bryn grabbed her purse, laptop, broken gavel, stormed out. Paulette and Glenn followed like scolded dogs. The door slammed. Silence for 3 seconds. Then Claudia started clapping. Everyone joined in. Here's your takeaway. Most states allow HOA board recalls with a simple petition, usually 10 to 20% of homeowners. Boards don't advertise this because they don't want you to know, but the power's always been yours. By the time I left that night, I had 17 signatures, 3 more than I needed. The next morning, Mira called me at 7 a.m. Dex, you sitting down? I'm drinking coffee. What's up? I found something, and it's bad. And she'd spent the previous night digging through Pinewood Meadows HOA's financial records, the ones that were supposed to be public but that Bryn had never filed with the state. Mira had connections at the North Carolina Secretary of State's office. She'd pulled everything. Bank statements, vendor invoices, board meeting minutes that were supposed to be archived. There's $47,000 missing from the reserve fund, Mira said. I set my coffee down. Say that again. 47,000. Gone. I cross-referenced the bank statements with the budget Bryn submitted when she took over. The reserve fund had 62,000 in it. Now it's got 15. Where'd it go? That's the fun part. I could hear her flipping through papers. 22,000 to something called Platinum Landscape Solutions for subdivision enhancements. 18,000 to Apex Design Consulting for clubhouse renovations. Try and another 7,000 listed as administrative fees, paid directly to Bryn. She's paying herself a salary? Yep. Unauthorized. The bylaws don't allow it. And here's the kicker. I looked up Platinum Landscape Solutions. Guess who owns it? Glenn. Bingo, his lawn care company. And Apex Design Consulting, registered to Todd Kowalczyk, Bryn's husband. I leaned back in my chair. She's funneling HOA money to her husband and her board cronies. Yep. And none of these contracts went out for competitive bidding, which the bylaws require for anything over $5,000. It's textbook embezzlement. Mira paused. Dex, this isn't just an HOA violation. Under North Carolina law, if you embezzle more than $5,000 from a nonprofit or HOA, it's a Class H felony. She could go to prison. Does she know you have this? Not yet, but she's about to. That afternoon, I drove over to the clubhouse. The renovations Bryn had authorized were obvious now that I knew what to look for. Fresh paint on the walls, cheap stuff already peeling at the corners, new folding chairs, plastic, flimsy, the kind you buy in bulk at Costco, a flat-screen TV mounted in the corner that nobody had asked for. $18,000 for this? I walked outside and looked at the landscape enhancements. New shrubs planted along the front walkway, except half of them were already dead. Brown, wilted, roots exposed. Glenn had used the wrong species for North Carolina's climate. Any actual landscaper would have known that. $22,000 for dead shrubs. I took photos of everything, sent them to Mira. She texted back immediately. This is gorgeous. I'm forwarding to the AG's office. Here's what most people don't know. HOAs are classified as nonprofit corporations in most states. That means they're subject to the same financial oversight rules as charities. Embezzling from an HOA isn't just creative accounting. It's a crime. And because HOA records are public, it's one of the easiest frauds to catch if you know where to look. The takeaway? If your HOA won't show you the books, file a public records request with your state. In North Carolina, it's free. In most states, they have to comply within 10 business days. And if the numbers don't add up, you've got grounds for a lawsuit or criminal charges. Mira filed a formal complaint with the North Carolina Attorney General's office that evening. She attached bank statements, invoices, meeting minutes, photos of the shoddy work, everything. Within 48 hours, the AG's office opened an investigation. Bryn didn't know it yet, but her days as HOA president were numbered, and the clock was ticking. I needed to end this, not with lawyers and paperwork that would drag on for months. I needed something visual, something the neighborhood would never forget, something that would make Bryn understand she'd picked a fight with the wrong guy. I picked up my phone and called an old friend. Voss, it's Dex Harmon, Lieutenant Colonel Marcus Voss. We'd served together in Iraq. I ran logistics. He commanded an armored unit. Retired 3 years ago, lived near Fort Liberty now, and last I heard, he'd bought something crazy at a government auction. Dex, long time, what's going on? You still have that tank? Pause. Why are you asking about my tank? I need to borrow it, he laughed. You're joking. I'm not. Veterans Day parade, community event 2 months from now. Another pause. What's this really about? I've got an HOA president who's been terrorizing my neighborhood, towed my car illegally, embezzled $47,000, and she's about to learn a lesson about picking fights with veterans. Silence, then. I'm in, but I'm driving. Nobody touches my baby except me. Deal. Here's something most people don't know. You can legally own a decommissioned military tank in the United States. Voss had bought an M60 Patton at auction for $35,000, 25 tons of Cold War steel, fully functional engine, working treads, no weapons obviously, but it looked like a tank, because it was one. And in North Carolina, it's street legal, classified as specialty agricultural equipment, registered with the DMV, insured, turn signals, brake lights, the whole deal. You need a commercial driver's license for anything over 26,000 pounds, which Voss had from his Army days. It was perfect. 2 days later, I filed a parade permit with Wake County. Simple application. Route, date, time, purpose. I called it a Veterans Day Tribute Parade, honoring local military families. The route would enter Pinewood Meadows via the public easement, loop the cul-de-sac, and end at the clubhouse. The county approved it in 72 hours. Here's your takeaway. Counties control parade permits for public roads and easements. HOAs can't touch them. First Amendment activity. Once that permit's issued, the HOA president can complain all she wants. Doesn't matter. I didn't tell Bryn, didn't tell anyone except the people who needed to know. Claudia organized this phone tree. She called every neighbor personally. Veterans Day celebration at the clubhouse, she said. Food, music, activities for kids. Trust me, you don't want to miss this. Ramon arranged food trucks, barbecue, tacos, ice cream, rented a bounce house, made it look like a real family event. Mira prepared her financial dossier, 200 copies, spiral bound. Where did your dues go? A forensic analysis, bank statements, invoices, photos of dead shrubs and peeling clubhouse paint, the whole story. Earl, the tow truck guy, agreed to bring his truck and park it with a sign. Ask me about illegal HOA tows. 3 other neighborhood veterans signed on. Sergeant Hale, Marine, lost his leg in Fallujah, ran a youth football league now. Davon, Navy Corpsman. Iris, Air Force mechanic, all in uniform. And I called WRAL, local NBC station, told the assignment editor about a unique Veterans Day tribute involving a restored military tank. She transferred me to a reporter named Jenny Shue. A tank? Jenny said. A real tank? 25 tons, street legal, rolling through a subdivision. We'll be there. This is gold. 2 weeks before the event, Voss brought the tank to an empty Walmart parking lot on a Sunday morning. Store manager was a vet, gave us permission, thought it was hilarious. The M60 Patton sat on a flatbed trailer, olive drab paint, white star on the turret. Voss had stenciled Patton's Revenge on the barrel. He taught me the basics. 2 control sticks for steering, pedals for throttle and brake, top speed 30 miles per hour. Turning radius needed a full street width. I climbed into the driver's seat, started the engine. The sound. God, the sound. A diesel roar that rattled your chest. The treads clanked against asphalt like hammers on anvils. You could hear it from blocks away. I practiced for 90 minutes, drove circles around the parking lot. A crowd gathered, people filming, kids asking questions. One boy, maybe 7, tugged his dad's sleeve and pointed. "Is that real?" "Real as it gets, kiddo," I called down from the hatch. His eyes went huge. Voss and I painted "Veterans for Accountability" on the side in white block letters. "If you're going to make a statement," Voss said, grinning, "make it loud." The diesel exhaust smelled like every deployment I'd ever been on. Thick, acrid, familiar. The metallic clank of treads on pavement was music. Ramon tested his PA system mounted on his truck. "Testing, testing. Bryn, you in trouble, girl." We laughed. I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Purpose. Clarity. This was what I was good at. Planning operations, coordinating logistics, leading a team toward a single objective. And this objective was simple. Make Bryn Kowalczyk understand that when you abuse power, eventually someone bigger shows up. In this case, literally. 25 tons bigger. Bryn found out about the parade exactly 1 week before Veterans Day. I know because Claudia got a phone call. Bryn was screaming so loud Claudia had to hold the phone away from her ear. "You're helping him? After everything I've done for this community?" Claudia, bless her heart, stayed calm. "Bryn, it's a Veterans Day event. For the whole neighborhood. You're welcome to come." "I will not be attending a circus organized by that man, and I'm putting a stop to it." She hung up. 20 minutes later, Bryn called the county permit office, claimed the parade permit had been obtained under false pretenses, said I was planning a dangerous demonstration that would endanger children and damage property. The county clerk called me that afternoon. "Mr. Harmon, we've received a complaint about your permit. I need to verify some details." I explained everything. Voss's credentials, the tank's registration and insurance, the fact that it was a slow-moving vehicle, 30 miles per hour maximum, on a designated route with police notification. "Is this some kind of protest?" the clerk asked. "No, ma'am. It's a Veterans Day tribute. We're honoring local military families. We've got food trucks, activities for kids, veterans in attendance. It's a community celebration." Silence. Then, "Okay, your permit stands. The complaint is noted but doesn't meet criteria for revocation. Have a good day, Mr. Harmon." Bryn's first attempt failed. Bitch. 2 days later, she tried a different approach. Ramon got a knock on his door. It was Bryn. She was holding a folder, official-looking, with the HOA logo on it. "Mr. Ayala, I wanted to speak with you privately." Ramon leaned against his doorframe. "About what?" "I understand you're involved in Mr. Harmon's event. I'm here to offer you a resolution." She opened the folder. "You currently owe $600 in HOA fines. I'm prepared to waive them entirely if you withdraw your participation." Ramon stared at her. "You're bribing me. I'm offering you a reasonable compromise. You're asking me to screw over a guy who's trying to help this neighborhood." He pulled out his phone, hit record. "Say that again. The part about waiving my fines if I bail on the parade." Bryn's face went white. "I don't appreciate being recorded without... North Carolina's a one-party consent state. I can record any conversation I'm part of. Now you want to repeat that offer, or are we done here?" She turned and walked away without another word. Ramon sent the recording to me, Claudia, and Mira, then posted it in the neighborhood Facebook group. It had 63 reactions in an hour, all of them angry face emojis. Bryn's second attempt failed. Tia, but she wasn't finished. The night before Veterans Day, at 2 in the morning, someone poured motor oil across the easement access road, the route the tank would use to enter the subdivision. Mr. Ortiz saw it happen. He'd been up late, couldn't sleep, was looking out his front window, saw 2 figures moving in the dark with flashlights in a container. He grabbed his phone and recorded them. The video was grainy, shot through a window at night, but you could make out 2 people. One was clearly Bryn, blonde hair, that white cardigan she always wore. The other was Todd, her husband. First time I'd seen him do anything except stare at his phone. They poured a gallon of motor oil across the access road, then hurried back to their house. Mr. Ortiz texted me at 2:17 a.m. "Your HOA president doing some shady shit in the dark. Got it on video." I called Ramon, then Claudia. We met at the access road at 3 in the morning with work gloves, bags of kitty litter, and sawdust. The oil was slick, smelled like a garage, shimmered under the streetlights. We spent 90 minutes cleaning it up. Poured absorbent material over every inch, swept it away, hosed down the pavement. By dawn, the road was clean, and I had video evidence of Bryn sabotaging a permitted public event. I forwarded the video to Mira. She sent it to the county sheriff's office and the attorney general's investigator assigned to Bryn's embezzlement case. Then I did something petty. I made a still frame from the video, Bryn clearly visible, holding the oil container, and printed it, 8 by 10, mounted it on poster board with a caption, "When you can't win legally, try vandalism." I was going to display it at the event, right next to Earl's tow truck. Ramon and I stood in the pre-dawn light, smelling like motor oil and sweat, watching the sun come up over the subdivision. "She's lost her mind," Ramon said. "She's desperate," I replied. "Desperate people make stupid mistakes." "Think she'll show up today?" "Oh, she'll show up. She won't be able to help herself." He grinned. "This is going to be fun." Fun wasn't the word I'd use. Satisfying was closer. But I went home, showered, put on my old army cap and dog tags. First time I'd worn them in 2 years. They felt heavier than I remembered. Voss called at 7 a.m. "Tanks loaded. We're rolling out in 30. See you soon, brother." "Roger that." I made coffee, sat on my front porch, watched the neighborhood wake up. Bryn's house was dark, curtains drawn, but I knew she was awake, knew she was watching. And in exactly 3 hours, 25 tons of Cold War justice were going to roll past her front door. I smiled. At 8:30 a.m., I got a call from Claudia. "Dex, you need to see this." "See what?" "Facebook. She's gone nuclear." I opened my laptop. There it was. A new Facebook page called Concerned Citizens of Pinewood Meadows, created overnight. Already had 43 followers, most of them from outside our subdivision. The page had 3 posts, all uploaded within the last hour. The first was a long text post. "Alert. A resident of our peaceful community is planning a dangerous stunt today that puts families and children at risk. He claims it's a Veterans Day celebration, but it's actually a 25-ton military tank being driven through residential streets where kids play. This is reckless, unsafe, and completely inappropriate. He is an unstable individual with known anger issues who has been harassing our HOA board for months. We are calling on county officials to stop this event before someone gets hurt." The second post was a photo, my Mustang being towed, cropped to make it look abandoned and junky. Caption, "This is what he calls a historic vehicle. Community standards matter." The third post was worse. Someone had dug up an old news article from 2008, a piece about veterans struggling with PTSD after deployments. My name wasn't in it, but Bryn had somehow connected it to me. Caption, "Ask yourself, do we want unstable combat veterans operating military weapons in our neighborhood?" I read it twice, felt my jaw tighten. She was calling me unstable, dangerous, using my service, my deployments, as a weapon against me. I called Mira. "I saw it," she said before I could speak. "It's defamation, textbook. We can sue her into the ground." "I don't want to sue her. I want this page taken down." "Already on it. I'm reporting it to Facebook for harassment and misinformation, but it'll take time." "We don't have time. The event's in 90 minutes. "I know. Which is why I'm doing something else." Yeah. 15 minutes later, a new page appeared. Real Neighbors of Pinewood Meadows, Against HOA Corruption. Created by Claudia's granddaughter, Tisha. 26 years old, worked in digital marketing, knew how social media worked. The page's first post was a photo of Bryn's financial dossier, the cover page showing $47,000 missing. Caption, "Want to talk about who's really dangerous? Let's discuss embezzlement." Second post, the recording of Bryn trying to bribe Ramon. Third post, Mr. Ortiz's video of Bryn pouring motor oil on the access road at 2 a.m. Fourth post, Earl's invoice showing 4 illegal tows ordered by Bryn in 6 months. Tisha didn't stop there. She cross-posted everything to neighborhood groups, community pages, local news watch forums, tagged WRAL, tagged the county commissioner, tagged the North Carolina Attorney General's office. Within an hour, the page had 200 followers. By 9:30, it had over 1,000. Comments poured in. "This HOA president is a criminal. I live 3 subdivisions over and our HOA does the same crap. How do we stop them? That veteran deserves an apology, not harassment. The tide was turning. Fast. Aisha. At 9:45, Jenny Shu from WRAL called me. Mr. Harmon, we've been seeing some posts online. Allegations about you being unstable, dangerous. What's your response? I took a breath. Ms. Zhu, I served 27 years in the Army, logistics officer, no PTSD diagnosis, no anger issues, no criminal record. What I do have is an HOA president who's been abusing her power for 6 months, towing cars illegally, fining people for made-up violations, and embezzling nearly $50,000. The Attorney General's office is already investigating her. Today's event is exactly what I said it is, a Veterans Day tribute. We've got county permits, insurance, food trucks, and activities for kids. If she wants to call that dangerous, that says more about her than it does about me. Silence on the line. Then, can I quote you on that? Every word. We'll see you at 10:30. I went through my final checklist. Tank scheduled to arrive at 1000 hours. Voss confirmed via text. 20 minutes out, ready to rock. Food trucks positioned at the clubhouse. Ramon had 3 of them. Barbecue, tacos, a dessert truck with funnel cakes. The bounce house was inflated. Kids were already showing up with their parents. Mira arrived with boxes of dossiers. 200 copies stacked on a folding table near the clubhouse entrance. Sign above them, "Free, your HOA finances exposed." Earl parked his tow truck front and center, the hand-painted sign zip-tied to the side. "Ask me about illegal HOA tows." Sergeant Hale rolled up in his wheelchair wearing his dress blues. Devon and Iris arrived in uniform. 3 other veterans I didn't know showed up. Word had spread on veteran community pages. One of them was carrying an American flag. The county had sent 2 sheriff's deputies, off-duty, volunteering as parade monitors, both veterans themselves. By 10:15, over 100 people were gathered. Neighbors, families, curious onlookers who'd seen the Facebook posts and wanted to witness history. The smell of barbecue smoke mixed with diesel fumes. Kids ran through the bounce house, laughing. Someone had brought a portable speaker playing patriotic music. It felt like a real celebration. And then, at exactly 10:27 a.m., I heard it. A low rumble from the access road, deep, mechanical, unmistakable. The tank was coming. People turned. Phones came out. The music stopped. The rumble grew louder, closer, and then it appeared. 25 tons of olive drab steel, treads chewing pavement, diesel engine roaring, American flag mounted on the turret, Voss in the commander's hatch grinning like a kid at Christmas. The crowd erupted, cheering, clapping, kids screaming with excitement. I looked across the cul-de-sac. Bryn's front door was closed, curtains drawn, but I knew she was watching, and I smiled. The tank rolled into Pinewood Meadows like a force of nature. 30 miles per hour, diesel engine roaring, metal treads clanking against asphalt, a sound that shook windows and set off car alarms 3 streets over. Kids screamed with delight. Adults scrambled for their phones. Voss sat in the commander's hatch, one hand on the rim, the other waving to the crowd. The American flag snapped in the wind above the turret. The white letters on the side, "Veterans for Accountability," were impossible to miss. I walked alongside, wearing my army cap and dog tags. Sergeant Hale rolled next to me in his wheelchair, dress blues sharp enough to cut glass. Devon and Iris flanked us. 2 sheriff's deputies brought up the rear, grinning. The tank made the turn onto the cul-de-sac, slow, inexorable. The treads left shallow marks in the asphalt, proof that 25 tons had been here. And then we reached Bryn's house. She was standing in her driveway. White capris, pearl necklace, coffee mug in hand. Trying to look casual, like this was just another Saturday morning. But her face told a different story. The tank rounded the corner, turret rotating slightly as Voss adjusted course. It was pointed directly at her house for exactly 3 seconds. Unintentional, just the mechanics of the turn, but the optics were perfect. Bryn dropped her coffee mug. It shattered on the concrete, brown liquid spreading across her pristine driveway. She tried to wave the tank down, actually stepped into the street, hand up like a crossing guard. Voss didn't stop, didn't even slow down, just kept rolling, the engine roar drowning out whatever she was shouting. The tank moved past her. She stood there, frozen, staring. I didn't wave, didn't smile, just kept walking. Behind me, I heard Claudia's voice over the PA system. "Ladies and gentlemen, let's give a round of applause for our veterans." The crowd at the clubhouse, 200 people now, maybe more, erupted in cheers. Dot. The tank parked perpendicular to the clubhouse entrance, treads straddling the easement access road. Voss cut the engine. The sudden silence was almost jarring. He climbed out, dropped to the ground, shook my hand. How'd I do? Perfect. Kids swarmed the tank immediately. Parents took photos. Voss let them climb on the treads, look inside the hatch, ask questions. Can it shoot? How fast does it go? Can you run over a car? Voss handled it like a pro. Patient, smiling. This was recruitment poster stuff. I walked to the front of the crowd. Ramon handed me a microphone. The PA system crackled. Everyone turned. Good morning, I said. Thank you all for coming. Applause. A few whistles. 6 months ago, I moved here for peace. I'd spent 27 years in the Army. I wanted a quiet place to work on cars, grow a garden, and be left alone. Instead, I found a bully with a gavel. Murmurs of agreement. She towed my car illegally. She fined neighbors for made-up violations. She threatened to put liens on our homes. And then we found out why. Mira stepped forward, holding up one of the dossiers. She embezzled $47,000 of your money. Gasps. People grabbed copies from the table, flipping pages, reading, faces shifting from confusion to anger. I continued. She paid herself a salary, unauthorized. She funneled contracts to her husband and her board cronies. No competitive bids, shoddy work, inflated prices, dead shrubs, peeling paint. She stole from every single one of us. A woman in the crowd shouted, "Where is she?" I pointed. About 100 yards that way, probably watching from her window. The crowd turned as one, staring at Bryn's house. And then, like she couldn't resist, Bryn appeared, storming across the grass toward the clubhouse, Todd trailing behind her like a kicked dog. She pushed through the crowd. "This is illegal. You can't." I held up a document. County permit, stamped and signed. Public easement, First Amendment, fully permitted. Want to see the insurance paperwork too? Her face went red. You brought a tank into a residential neighborhood. A legally registered, fully insured specialty vehicle, I said calmly. Driven by a licensed operator on a permitted parade route. Everything by the book. She jabbed a finger at Glenn and Todd, who were standing at the edge of the crowd. Tell them this is harassment. Neither of them moved. Jenny Zhu stepped forward, WRAL camera crew behind her. Ms. Kowalczyk, can you comment on the allegations of embezzlement? The Attorney General's office has confirmed an active investigation. Bryn's mouth opened, closed, opened again. I have no comment. My attorney... Your attorney advised you to leave, didn't he? Mira said, stepping up beside me. Because anything you say right now can be used against you in court. One of the sheriff's deputies cleared his throat. Ma'am, I'm not here in an official capacity, but I've been asked to let you know. The AG's office will be contacting you Monday morning. You might want to have that attorney on speed dial. Bryn looked around wildly, at the crowd, at the camera, at the tank, at the dossiers in people's hands. Her perfectly constructed world was collapsing in real time. This isn't... I leaned into the microphone. Today we take it back. The crowd erupted, applause, cheering, chanting, Dex, Dex, Dex. Bryn turned and ran. Actually ran. Todd hurried after her, loading her into his sedan. They drove off, tires squealing. The crowd watched them go. Then Claudia started clapping again, and everyone joined in. A kid climbed on the tank and planted the American flag on the turret. Someone started playing The Star-Spangled Banner over the speakers. I stood there, surrounded by neighbors, veterans, friends, and for the first time in 6 months, I felt like I was home.